Before there were clocks, before there were names for stars or mountains or oceans, there was only silence. A silence older than memory, deeper than sleep. The earth was not yet a world of people or plans. It was a dream in motion, molten, shifting, restless, and alive. From fire came stone. From stone came rain. From rain came life. A single breath that would echo across billions of years. And so began a story written not in words but in waves, wind, and bone. A story too vast for language, too patient for fear. A story of creatures who rose, walked, flew, and vanished, leaving only whispers behind etched into the skin of the planet itself. This is not a story of endings, but of becoming. Of Earth awakening. Learning to breathe, to move, to dream. So close your eyes and listen to the heartbeat of time itself. In the beginning, the world was not as it is now. It was restless, molten, wild, a planet still dreaming itself into being. There were no oceans yet, no blue skies, no green to soften the edges of stone, only fire and shadow, colliding and shaping the bones of a young Earth. The air trembled with heat. The ground pulsed with the rhythm of creation. Volcanoes rose and fell like the breath of giants, spilling rivers of fire across continents that did not yet know their names. Lightning danced through heavy clouds of ash, striking the newborn soil and splitting the darkness into fleeting flashes of light. Each spark, each crash was part of something greater, a slow symphony of beginnings. The earth was alive, though it did not yet know what life meant. It twisted and sighed, cooling and cracking, reshaping itself from chaos into quiet. Mountains pushed upward, breaking through the haze like ancient prayers, and the first rains fell. Slow, hesitant, soft. They hissed as they met the hot stone, turning steam into mist that drifted across a world still shivering from creation's touch. It rained for centuries, endless cleansing rain, carving rivers into the rock and pooling into vast basins that would one day become oceans. The first light reflected across their surfaces, shimmering like molten silver. Beneath that light, in places unseen, something small began to stir, the first whisper of life. In the stillness, the simplest forms appeared. Not yet animals, not yet plants, but something between. Single cells trembling in the water, dividing, multiplying, adapting. They did not rush. They had all the time in the world. In this ancient dawn, time itself felt endless, stretching like an unbroken horizon. Each heartbeat of the earth lasted 1,000 lifetimes. Each gust of wind was a memory in the making. Slowly, the world learned how to breathe. The skies cleared, turning from gray to a deep, endless blue. Sunlight broke through, golden and warm, and for the first time it touched green. The earliest plants, fragile and brave, reached upward through the soil, their tiny leaves trembling in the wind. They didn't know they were changing everything. They simply grew, and in their growth, they began to fill the air with breath. Imagine standing there, where no footsteps had ever fallen, where every sound was new, the ground still warm beneath your feet, the air thick with mist and wonder, the scent of wet stone and ash, the sky alive with distant thunder that rolled across empty valleys. There was a peace in that world, a slow, deep peace that comes only before the noise of life begins. The silence wasn't empty. It was full of potential, full of the hum of a planet waiting for its story to begin. And then, that silence began to change. Streams trickled through canyons of black rock, their waters singing softly as they moved toward the sea. The land shifted colors, grays giving way to greens, browns to golds. Moss crept across stones like memory taking root. Tiny forests of ferns rose, fragile yet unstoppable. In their shadow, the wind began to whisper differently, carrying with it the first hints of song. Forests turned the world into a living instrument. The rustle of leaves became rhythm. The patter of rain became melody. The world was learning its first music, not made by hands or intention, but by life itself. Trees swayed in time with unseen tides, and beneath their roots the soil pulsed with quiet energy. Each root was a thread in the great fabric of existence, reaching, connecting, breathing. The earth had awakened, the days grew longer, and the nights became filled with a soft, luminescent glow. The moon, still scarred from its own birth, hung heavy in the sky, watching over this slow transformation. Oceans deepened, their waves murmuring against newborn shores. Life beneath their surfaces multiplied, drifting and evolving in the cradle of water. Tiny creatures began to swim, their translucent bodies catching the light like shards of glass. They did not know they were the ancestors of everything that would come after. They only knew motion, hunger, and the rhythm of survival. Millions of years passed like minutes in a dream. Continents drifted apart. Mountains eroded. The air thickened with oxygen. The forests grew taller, denser, darker. Great tree ferns stretched toward the sun, creating green cathedrals where light filtered in golden beams. The air was warm and heavy, humming with life. Insects the size of birds glided between the leaves. The earth was no longer empty. It was a masterpiece of sound and motion, a slow dance of evolution painted in greens and blues. Still, in this great expansion, time never hurried. Each generation of life gave way to another, layer upon layer, story upon story. The ground beneath the trees was soft with fallen leaves and the weight of ages. The rivers carried whispers of distant lands, mingling stories across valleys and plains. The earth was beginning to dream of creatures, beings that would walk, run, and one day rule. But for now it was content to grow, to breathe, to rest. There was something sacred in the pace of it all. The stars looked down and saw no hurry. The sun rose and set in patient rhythm. The moon pulled the tides without question. Life obeyed no clock, no deadline. It existed because it could, and that was enough. Everything moved with the grace of inevitability. Imagine again that you are standing there, and the soil damp beneath your bare feet, the air thick with the scent of green life and rain. All around you the world hums with a sound so low, so deep, it feels like the pulse of the planet itself. The wind moves through trees that have never known an axe. The rivers sing songs that no ear has heard. Every stone beneath you carries memory, the warmth of creation, the cool of time passing, the touch of storms long gone. The earth is old now, yet still young in its soul. Its heart beats beneath layers of stone and soil. Its breath moves through forests and across seas. In every gust of wind, in every drop of rain, it remembers its birth. And though eons have passed since that first awakening, the rhythm remains. The same quiet pulse that began when the world first cooled, when the first green leaf unfurled toward the sun. And as that rhythm continues, new forms begin to rise. From the warm waters of the ancient seas, creatures crawl onto land, clumsy but determined. They blink beneath the vastness of open sky, feeling the dry air on their skin for the first time. They do not know what they are, only that the land calls to them, that the earth itself seems to be inviting them upward. Life is learning to walk, to breathe, to dream in new ways. The forests welcome them. Shadows stretch long across the moss as these creatures move, slow and cautious between ferns taller than themselves. The sound of their movements is swallowed by the stillness of the green. Each step leaves an imprint that will one day be fossilized, a memory of the moment when water met land and creation found its courage. The earth watches, silent and vast. Its mountains stand as witnesses, its rivers as storytellers. The first winds that once cooled molten rock now carry the scent of leaves, of soil, of life. The planet that once burned now nurtures. The fire has turned inward, glowing beneath the crust, a steady heartbeat that warms the world from within. And so the silence has become song. The chaos has become rhythm. The darkness has become life. Time drifts on, unhurried, unknowable. The world continues to shape itself, not through violence but through patience, through cycles of growth, decay, and renewal. The forests thicken, spreading across continents. The skies darken with clouds heavy with rain. Thunder murmurs softly in the distance, not in anger but remembrance. The earth remembers the fire, the ash, the storms, and smiles beneath its blanket of green. If you listen closely, even now you can hear it. The slow breath of the planet, the echo of that first awakening. In the whisper of leaves, in the crash of waves, in the hush of distant thunder, it's still there. The memory of the moment when the earth opened its eyes and saw itself for the first time. And though we have built cities and machines and noise, the old rhythm remains underneath it all, the steady, eternal, patient. Every heartbeat, every breath we take still belongs to that same ancient pulse. We are not separate from it. We are part of it, the continuation of its dream. So close your eyes. Imagine that first dawn again. The golden light spreading across steaming earth, the world freshly born and full of promise. Feel the warmth of the soil, the cool of the rain, the deep calm of time unbroken. This is where everything began. And in the quiet of night as you drift towards sleep, remember, the earth is still awakening, even now. And as the earth continued to awaken, time moved like a slow tide. Millions of years passed in silence, and the planet settled into its rhythm. The air thickened with warmth, heavy with the scent of rain and the green perfume of growing things. Rivers found their paths, carving stories into the skin of the land, weaving through valleys that would one day become cradles of life. The oceans grew restless, shimmering under the pale light of a sun not yet steady. Their waves whispered against the shores, singing to the wind, to the mountains, to the sky. And in the quiet depths the first true creatures drifted like dreams, delicate, translucent, endlessly curious. They floated through columns of light that pierced the surface, unaware that they were the beginning of something eternal. Tiny forms began to pulse and twist, learning movement, learning hunger. They did not think. They simply responded, to warmth, to current, to the call of existence itself. The water was their sky and the seafloor their horizon. Each one was a spark, a flicker in an ocean of possibility. From them, complexity bloomed. Soon there were shapes, soft-bodied, coiled, strange. They grazed on drifting clouds of life, smaller still. They devoured, divided, grew. Time folded around them like a blanket, nurturing their changes. The earth was patient. It had no need to rush. Everything happened as it was meant to, in the slow language of creation. Above the oceans, storms rolled endlessly across the horizon. Lightning flashed through heavy clouds and rain poured down for centuries. It was not destruction. It was renewal, washing minerals into the seas, feeding the hidden laboratories of life. The sky and the water worked together, mother and child in constant conversation. In the depths, eyes began to form. Simple at first, patches of light and dark. But they saw enough to chase the glow that filtered from above. The ocean shimmered with awareness. Life began to notice itself. Then came bones, shells, and teeth, nature's first experiments with permanence. Creatures crawled across the seabed on awkward limbs, leaving trails in the sand that would harden into stone, marks that would outlast empires. They did not know they were writing history. They were simply living. Above them, the land waited, vast, untouched, silent. The forests thickened, spreading further than sight. Giant ferns and towering horsetails brushed the clouds. Their leaves were slick with mist, their roots tangled in the dark soil. The air buzzed faintly with the sound of insects, wings beating, legs clicking, life multiplying in every hidden corner. The earth was becoming a living cathedral. Every forest a hall of breathing green. Every gust of wind a hymn to patience. The days were hot, the nights cool and damp. The stars hung closer then, their light sharp and clear. In that endless sky, comets traced slow arcs like the brushstrokes of time. The moon watched faithfully, pulling the tides, guiding the rhythm of growth. And still time passed. Life adapted, split, reimagined itself. The first fish turned into wanderers of the shallows. Their fins grew stronger, their bodies thicker. Some began to test the edges of land where waves broke against rock. They gulped the air, not yet knowing what it was. Their hearts beat faster. Something inside them stirred. Something ancient and inevitable. One day, one of them lingered longer than the tide allowed. It gasped, wriggled, and moved forward. Its body, once made for the sea, pressed into the soil, and the earth felt the touch of animal flesh for the first time. It was awkward, fragile, miraculous, and from that moment the silence of the land began to fade. The forest listened as new voices joined their choir. Small creatures crept between ferns, blinking against sunlight. Their hearts matched the slow rhythm of the planet. Centuries turned to ages. The simple forms grew into complexity. Amphibians with wide eyes, skin glistening with dew, resting on moss beside rivers that mirrored the stars. Insects danced in shafts of light. The world pulsed with color and motion. The earth, once a sphere of fire, had become a cradle of wonders. Mountains stood like guardians over the valleys. Oceans glittered under endless dawns. The air shimmered with energy, and the soil beneath was rich with the remains of what came before. Everything fed everything else. Death and life were not opposites here. They were partners in an eternal cycle. When one form ended, another began. The world wasted nothing. It remembered. Through this remembering, evolution continued its art. From small amphibians came reptiles, creatures that understood the dry heat of the land, that learned to walk with strength and confidence. They spread far and wide, basking beneath the ancient sun. The air around them shimmered with the warmth of possibility. The continents shifted like slow clouds, grinding, merging, drifting apart. The world's map was being drawn and erased over and over. A painter endlessly revising their masterpiece. Deserts formed and vanished. Mountains fell and rose again. Rivers changed their paths. And through it all, life endured, adjusted, flourished. There were moments of stillness when the earth seemed to hold its breath, and others when it trembled, reshaped by fire from within. But even in its violence there was purpose, a slow sculpting of form and place. Every eruption, every storm, every flood added a line to the story. Then, in the warmth of the Triassic dawn, the age of giants began to stir. From the lineage of reptiles, new shapes emerged, stronger, larger, hungrier for sunlight and space. They would one day be called dinosaurs, though they knew no names, no titles. They were simply life's next great experiment. At first they were small, creatures no bigger than birds. They darted between the ferns, alert, curious, learning to live among shadows and giants alike. But the earth favored growth. With time they grew larger, taller, more magnificent. Their footsteps echoed across the plains. Their shadows stretched across rivers. They did not rush. They had millions of years to become themselves. The forests watched them come and go, their leaves trembling under the rumble of movement. The air vibrated with the calls of creatures so vast they seemed like walking mountains. Some moved slowly and peacefully, feeding on leaves high above. Others hunted in silence, guided by the ancient law of balance that had always ruled the earth. It was not chaos. It was harmony. The predators kept the world awake. The gentle ones kept it alive. Each life, each death, part of the same long dream. Time continued its endless drift. The earth wore new colors now. Emerald jungles, amber deserts, silver rivers winding through fields of fern. Volcanoes still smoked in the distance, their glow a reminder that the fire at the planet's heart still burned. Seasons changed slowly. Rain fell in sheets so heavy it sounded like applause. Thunder rolled over the plains like the heartbeat of the sky. The dinosaurs walked through all of it, patient, unknowing, eternal in their grace. When they rested, the world grew quiet around them. When they moved, the ground seemed to hum. Even the wind carried their presence, bending the grass, scattering the seeds that would grow into forests for future ages. And yet, even in their greatness, the same rhythm endured, the old pulse of the earth steady and calm. Every life that rose and fell was part of that ancient music. Millions more years would pass before the silence would return, before the sky would darken with dust, and the age of giants would end. But for now, the earth was alive in full voice, green and gold and infinite. If you close your eyes, you can still feel it. The warmth of the ancient sun, the breath of ferns, the tremble of the ground beneath massive feet. You can hear the faint echo of wings above the trees and the slow roll of thunder beyond the mountains. It's all still here, written into the stones beneath our cities, into the bones of our planet, into the very rhythm of your heartbeat. Because that awakening never truly ended. The earth continues to breathe, to evolve, to dream through us. We are the newest verse in the oldest song, the same melody that began when the first rains fell upon molten rock. And as the night deepens, and your thoughts drift toward sleep, remember, the world beneath you is ancient, gentle, and alive. Its story moves slowly, patiently, lovingly. Every heartbeat echoes that first pulse of creation. Every breath you take is the earth remembering itself. The rain still falls somewhere. The forests still sway. The oceans still whisper their songs to the shore. And far beneath it all, the fire still glows, steady and eternal, waiting for another dawn. Sleep now. The earth will keep dreaming for you. The earth had grown old enough to dream in color. The air was heavy with the scent of fern and rain, and the sky carried a softness born from ages of warmth. Mists gathered at dawn, curling around trees that rose like pillars in a temple of green. The rivers ran slow and deep, their waters brown with the breath of soil. Every sound came muffled, distant, as if the world itself were speaking in sleep. From that stillness came movement, broad shadows sliding through the light, enormous shapes breaking the line between forest and plain. They did not hurry. Their steps were long and deliberate, their weight sinking into the earth like memory. These were the giants, the first true rulers of land. Their skin shimmered in shades of bronze and moss. Each muscle beneath it moved with the patience of centuries. When they walked, the ground hummed, a low drum beat that traveled through roots and rivers alike. Birds scattered softly ahead of them. Insects paused in their buzzing flight, and the world held its breath in awe. They were not monsters. There was no fury in their eyes, no rage in their hearts. They lived in harmony with the rhythm that had birthed them. Their lives unfolded not in years but in ages. They did not think of beginnings or endings, only of the sunlight that poured between the trees, of the leaves that rustled high above, and the endless, slow afternoons that filled their days. A long-necked sauropod moved among the trees, its head brushing the canopy as if greeting the sky. Each motion was silent, almost reverent. Its neck curved like a river's path, its eyes calm and deep. Around it, smaller creatures gathered, tiny mammals, quick-footed reptiles, winged insects dancing in shafts of gold. Life flowed around the giant as water flows around stone. The herd moved as one body. When one turned, the others followed, their massive forms casting shadows that stretched across the plains. Dust rose in soft clouds with every step, catching the light and turning to gold before it settled again. The world glowed with them. Their young walked in the center, sheltered between pillars of legs as thick as tree trunks. The air trembled with the rhythm of their breathing. Occasionally one would pause, lowering its head to tear a branch free. The sound of leaves breaking was the only disturbance in the day's quiet. There were no predators bold enough to challenge them here. The meat-eaters watched from the edges of the forest, sleek and patient. But even hunger bent itself before the sheer size of peace. In this age, strength was not violence. It was presence, the slow certainty of life too large to be threatened. Rain began to fall. First a whisper, then a steady song. The giants welcomed it without movement. Drops struck their backs and ran down in thin silver rivers. The scent of wet earth rose around them, thick and rich. Lightning flared far off, a brief reflection in the sheen of their hides, and then thunder rolled, deep and distant, echoing their own heartbeats. One lifted its head toward the storm, eyes half closed. The sound seemed to speak a language it understood. The storm was part of them. The fire in the sky was the same fire that burned inside the planet. The same warmth that pulsed through their blood. Everything belonged to the same rhythm. As evening came, the light softened to amber. Steam drifted up from the soaked plains. The herd slowed, finding a shallow valley where water pooled into mirrors. They waded in until it reached their knees, drinking in slow unison. Ripples spread outward from every movement, overlapping until the whole surface shivered. The sun, low behind the hills, painted their silhouettes in gold and shadow. For a few long minutes, the entire world seemed to exist only in reflection. The giants above and below doubled in stillness. When darkness settled, they lay down in circles, bodies curved like sleeping continents. The smallest nestled close to the warmth of their elders. The forest hummed with night sounds, chirps, rustles, distant calls. Overhead, the stars emerged, more brilliant than any eyes could remember, each one a shard of fire frozen in black. The giants slept. Their breath rose in mist, slow and even. They dreamed the planet's dream, the deep, wordless knowing that everything changes and yet nothing truly ends. At dawn, light returned in pale bands across the plain. The herd stirred, stretching, rising in rhythm. Steam lifted from their skin where the sun touched it. They began to move again, following the scent of new growth, of untouched leaves farther north. Their migration was not guided by instinct alone. It was as if the earth itself called to them, shifting its winds to show the way. Each day unfolded like a hymn. The same journey, the same patience, yet never the same world. Trees grew thicker where the rivers ran. Flowers opened and closed in time with the warmth. Insects painted the air with color. Even the soil beneath them changed, rich with their passing. Each footprint a small lake for rain, each fallen branch ground to food for roots below. Life was abundance without greed. The giants took only what they needed, and in return they shaped the world gently. Their paths became valleys. Their grazing opened sunlight to smaller plants. They were gardeners of continents, unaware of their art. Sometimes the wind carried the distant call of hunters, sharp-toothed, restless. The giants did not quicken their pace. They had learned that fear was a brief thing, a spark in the long dusk of time. The predators followed the edges of their world, taking only the weak, and in that balance the planet kept its peace. Even death here was slow, dignified, absorbed back into the soil without resistance. One afternoon, the air thickened with heat. The sky burned white, the horizon shimmered. Far away, thunderheads built towers of gray and silver. The herd moved through the glare, shadows stretched thin. They came upon a grove of cycads and ancient conifers, their leaves stiff and waxen. The tallest sauropod reached high, its long neck arching gracefully, and stripped the upper branches in slow motion. Leaves drifted down like feathers. Below, smaller dinosaurs waited for the scraps that fell, an entire community fed by one motion. The ground trembled with quiet harmony. Grasshoppers clicked. Water dripped from leaves in the shade. The day held its breath. As the sun lowered, colors changed. Gold to orange, orange to rose, then to the deep indigo of approaching night. Shadows gathered beneath the trees. The herd paused again. standing in the fading light like statues carved by the planet itself. Their eyes caught the reflection of the last rays, soft and thoughtful, as if aware of something beyond time. They would stand this way for a while, unmoving, until the stars emerged. Then with a slow turn they would begin their march again, always onward, always calm. Each step was a story, each pause a prayer. Morning stretched thin across the plains, a pale glow washing over the mist. Dew clung to every blade of fern, each droplet a tiny world reflecting sky and leaf. The air was cool and heavy, full of promise. A soft wind passed through the forest edge, carrying the scent of resin and damp earth. In that breeze the giants stirred, rising one by one, their skin shining where the light touched it. They began to move again, a quiet procession across the land. The ground gave slightly beneath each step, sighing under the weight. Birds wheeled above them in lazy spirals, their calls high and distant. Somewhere a river whispered its way between roots and stone. Every sound blended into the next until the whole landscape hummed with calm. The herd passed through a field where ancient cycads spread their spiny crowns. The leaves brushed against their legs with a papery hiss. Small lizards darted out of their way, leaving winding tracks in the dust. Everything yielded to them and then returned to stillness. Their movement was not disruption. It was part of the day's unfolding. Farther ahead, a solitary giant stood apart from the group, older, slower. Its hide bore the map of years, scars from storms, patches where moss had taken hold. It turned its head toward the rising sun, eyelids half closed, basking in the warmth. Around its feet, insects swarmed in the shadow, tiny motes caught in the golden light. The old creature breathed deeply, a sound like wind through hollow stone, and the air seemed to pause around it. The younger ones grazed nearby, tearing branches with the calm rhythm of breathing. Each motion was deliberate, almost ceremonial. They fed not in hunger but in habit, a slow exchange between leaf and life. The forest gave endlessly, and they in turn carried its seeds across miles of land, dropping them in soil newly opened by their steps. Without knowing, they shaped the pattern of growth for ages to come. By midday, the air grew thick and shimmering. Heat rose from the ground in waves, blurring the horizon. The herd reached an open plain where the last floods had left behind pools of clear water. The smell of clay and algae drifted up as they waded in, stirring soft mud beneath their feet. Dragonflies hovered above the surface, their wings catching rainbows. The giants drank deeply, their reflections trembling in the ripples. A distant rumble broke the silence, the growl of predators too small to be seen from here. The herd lifted their heads as one, still and alert. Then, sensing no threat, they lowered them again. Even danger had its place. The hunters waited for opportunity. The giants offered none. Balance kept them all alive. Clouds began to gather, slow and deliberate, like smoke rising from invisible fires. The light dimmed and a wind moved across the plain, cool and damp. The smell of rain arrived before the first drops fell. When it did, the sound was soft but endless, a hush that wrapped the world. They stood still, letting it fall over them, water streaming down their sides, washing dust into rivulets at their feet. The smell of wet earth deepened until it filled every breath. Thunder rolled again, not as threat but as rhythm. For a long time they simply existed beneath it, motionless, part of the storm's body. When the rain passed, the light returned sharper, fresher. Steam rose from the ground, curling around their legs. The sky opened in a clear blue vastness stretching forever. They began to move again, their skin glistening, their steps slower now. Afternoon softened into evening. Long shadows stretched behind them, turning the plain into a sea of bronze. In the distance, the outline of a forest thickened, dark against the sky. That was their destination, a place of tall trees and cool canopies where night could settle easily. As they entered the woods, the temperature dropped. The air was moist and full of the smell of sap. The ground became soft with fallen leaves. Sunlight fell through the branches in golden shards that danced on their backs. Smaller creatures called from unseen places, chirps, croaks, rustling wings. The herd moved in single file, enormous bodies weaving between trunks, heads swaying gently. Deep in the forest, they found an open space where the trees gave way to ferns waist high. There they stopped, lowering themselves into the greenery. The earth trembled softly under the combined weight, then steadied again. A few birds landed on their backs, picking at insects hidden in folds of skin. The giants tolerated them, still as statues, their eyes half closed. The light dimmed to the color of honey, then to amber, then to dusk. Shadows pooled at the base of trees. Somewhere an insect began a steady chirp that would last through the night. The herd sank into quiet. The world exhaled. Stars appeared slowly, one after another, mirrored in the dark pools left by rain. The forest canopy swayed with the wind, a whispering lullaby that spoke in the language of leaves. The giants slept, breath moving through them like the tide. The scent of earth and plant and rain hung thick in the cool air. Above them meteors crossed the sky in silent arcs, their light faint but pure. Time drifted with them, unmeasured, unhurried. The planet turned. The moon climbed. The herd dreamed of open plains and gentle storms, of sunlight through leaves and endless slow afternoons. Night was deep now, a slow ocean of darkness washing over every leaf, every breath. The forest slept, but the earth itself still murmured beneath the surface. Roots pressed through soil, rivers whispered unseen paths, and far below the old heartbeat of stone pulsed with quiet fire. The world was never still. It only slowed enough for living things to rest within its rhythm. The herd lay scattered among the ferns, their vast bodies like hills in the half-light. A few still moved, slow sighs, faint shifts of weight, the rustle of tails brushing ground. Steam rose faintly from their nostrils in the cool air. Insects traced pale lines through the mist, glowing briefly before vanishing again. Above them, the sky turned deeper, black fading toward blue as the edge of dawn began to stir beyond the horizon. Somewhere, the first bird-like creature called, not the shrill cry of warning, but something softer, tentative, as if testing the shape of the new morning. Another answered, and soon the air filled with a fragile kind of music. The light followed that song. It began as a faint silver, barely touching the tops of the tallest trees. Then slowly it spilled downward, over branches, through dew, across the rough hides of the sleeping giants. One stirred. Its head lifted, eyes glinting faintly in the half-light. The world shimmered before it, every leaf wet with sunrise. It blinked once, twice, then stood, the motion vast and silent. The ground responded with a low groan. Others followed, stretching their long necks toward the sky, their bodies glistening as the mist rolled away. Morning returned not as an event, but as a memory the earth never forgot. Every dawn had been like this for millions of years, soft, inevitable, forgiving. The herd began to move again, their silhouettes glowing gold where the light struck them. Young ones walked close beside their mothers, still clumsy, their steps uncertain. They watched the older giants with patient curiosity, learning the rhythm of distance and direction, the language of movement and silence. The day warmed quickly. From the edge of the forest, plains stretched open again, green fading to yellow under the heat. The herd moved toward it, their bodies swaying like ships on a calm sea. Each motion seemed older than time itself, a gesture passed down through countless generations. When they reached the open land, they spread out, forming slow-moving lines that shimmered with dust and sunlight. Far in the distance, another herd moved, smaller shapes against the haze moving in the same direction. For a while their paths ran parallel, never meeting but sharing the same space, the same wind, the same endless hunger for green. Between them rolled the songs of insects, the hum of unseen life filling every inch of air. A lone predator followed the herd's scent, silent and low to the ground. It was thin, desperate, but cautious. It knew its size in the world, its limits. It watched from a safe distance the giants far beyond its reach. Predators and prey were only names humans would one day give. In this time there was only survival, only the unbroken exchange of energy. When the creature realized there was no chance here, it turned away, disappearing into tall grass. The herd continued on, unaware or unbothered, their peace untouched. Afternoon came and went, marked not by clocks but by the slow shift of light. Shadows grew long again, stretching eastward. The world glowed in amber and dust. A gentle wind picked up, bending the tall plants, carrying the faint taste of salt. The sea lay far beyond, unseen but present, its tides shaping the breath of air that touched even these inland plains. One of the younger giants paused, lifting its head, nostrils flaring as it sensed that distant ocean. It had never seen it, but something ancient in its blood remembered. The rhythm of waves, the endless horizon. It turned its head, then followed the herd again. Instinct, memory, and earth itself spoke the same quiet language. As the sun sank, clouds gathered in soft layers of pink and gold. The sky became a canvas of molten light. The herd slowed, stopping near a line of stone ridges that jutted like old bones from the land. Here they would rest again. They stood close together, brushing against each other's sides, the sound like leather on bark. The youngest nestled between the legs of the elders, safe in the calm gravity of their presence. Night approached gently, folding over the landscape like a vast blanket. The wind cooled. The smell of grass deepened. The first stars returned, and with them came the steady, unspoken rhythm that had always guided this world. Creation, stillness, decay, rebirth. Nothing ever truly ended here. It only changed its form. The herd slept again, their silhouettes blending into the land that had given birth to them. In their sleep, perhaps they dreamed not as we do, but in sensations. Warmth, weight, the pulse of the earth beneath their feet. Perhaps their dreams were nothing more than echoes of the planet's own heartbeat. The world turned and time passed, though no one measured it. Rain would fall again, forests would shift, rivers would carve new paths through stone. The giants would rise each morning, walk, feed, and rest beneath the same stars. And though their kind would one day vanish, their rhythm would remain woven into the breath of everything that came after. For in truth, they were never gone. The dust that clung to their skin became soil. The air they breathed became wind that still moves across this earth. Their bones turned to rock, and their shapes became stories whispered in stone. Every mountain, every valley, carries a trace of their passage, a quiet memory of the age when the world moved to slower music. If you stand on open land today, where wind hums through tall grass and sunlight breaks across the horizon, you might still feel them. The faint tremor beneath your feet, the deep, slow rhythm in the earth. It is not imagination. It is history breathing. It is the echo of their steps, the lingering heartbeat of giants who once walked the land, calm and vast and patient, beneath a sky that has never stopped watching. Dawn spills over the horizon, slow and translucent, washing the sea in molten silver. The air is cool and heavy with salt, the waves murmuring a language older than memory. From the cliffs above the shoreline, mist drifts upward, curling like pale smoke. Somewhere in that rising veil, wings stir. The creature begins to move before the sun is fully born. Folds of skin stretch wide, catching the faint wind that moves between night and morning. Its body is light but strong, bones hollow as reeds, muscles tuned to the rhythm of air. With a single motion it steps into the empty sky, and the world opens beneath it. For a heartbeat there is only falling. Then the wind lifts. The membranes fill trembling and the glide begins. Below the ocean glitters like glass. The pterosaur tilts one wing, circling effortlessly, its shadow slipping across the water like a living ghost. The air hums around it, a soundless vibration that carries the promise of freedom. The world below still belongs mostly to giants, but up here the sky has no masters. Clouds drift in long ribbons. The horizon curves away until it disappears into brightness. The creature banks again, diving toward the sea where a school of fish flashes near the surface. The water breaks in a glitter of scales, and for an instant the flight becomes a hunt. A sharp cry, the glint of teeth, and then the sound of wings meeting air once more. Nothing above or below breaks the calm for long. The ocean settles, the ripples fade, and the air grows quiet again. The pterosaur glides higher, letting warm drafts carry it upward. From this height the land looks like a patchwork of green and gold. The forest dense and breathing, the rivers threading silver paths toward the sea. Wisps of steam rise where volcanoes still breathe through cracks in the earth. The smell of minerals and life drifts upward, faint but rich. Other shapes move in the distance, smaller wings, different patterns. Some are cousins, others strangers. Early experiments in the long conversation between wind and flesh. They pass one another without sound, each tracing invisible paths that cross and vanish. The sky has become a world of its own, full of silent travelers carried by invisible currents. As the sun climbs, the colors deepen. The air thickens with heat and the thermals grow stronger. The pterosaur rides them effortlessly, spiraling until the land becomes a blur beneath. It is not thought that guides it, but the pull of balance, the endless conversation between gravity and grace. It tilts, folds its wings slightly, and drifts sideways into cooler air. Each motion is instinct, each breath part of a rhythm as old as the wind itself. Far below, waves crash against the cliffs. Spray rises and falls, turning to rainbows in the sunlight. The sound carries upward in faint echoes, reaching the flyer's keen ears like distant memory. It circles once more and then drifts inland, following the line of a river that glitters between forests. The smell changes, salt fading into the green musk of leaves, wet soil, flowers unseen. On the riverbanks, ferns taller than a human stretch toward the light. Between them move smaller creatures, feathered, quick, curious. Some leap after insects, others run on hind legs, testing their wings with clumsy hops. The air is filled with rustle and chirp, the tentative rehearsal of flight. Evolution is practicing again and again, sketching possibilities in feathers and bone. The pterosaur glides lower, watching. Its shadow ripples over the treetops and the little feathered ones scatter. For a moment silence follows. Then the forest resumes its hum. Life here never truly stops. It only changes tempo. Above the canopy the flyer finds a rising column of warm air and climbs again. Its wings tremble with the lift and the land drops away. From this height clouds drift below like islands of vapor. It passes through one. Cool mist brushing its skin, beads of water gathering and then streaming away. For a brief moment it flies blind, wrapped in whiteness, and the world feels infinite. When it bursts through the top of the cloud, sunlight floods everything. The sea below shines like a mirror. The sky above burns blue so deep it feels endless. The pterosaur glides straight, weightless, the air thin and pure. It does not know wonder, but if it did, this would be the shape of it. Later, as the day softens, the wind cools and shifts. The flyer turns toward the coast again. Below, waves catch the orange of the setting sun, each crest a blade of light. The sky grows heavy with color, amber, rose, violet, spilling across the world in silence. The pterosaur folds its wings slightly and drops toward the cliffs where it began. The air thickens. The scent of salt returns, and with a final glide it lands on the stone ledge, claws scraping softly. It folds its wings close and settles, eyes half closed. Around it the air still moves, whispering through crevices, tugging gently at the folds of its skin. Down below, the ocean breathes against the shore. The day dies slowly without hurry. The first stars appear, faint and distant. The flyer lifts its head once as if to acknowledge them. Somewhere beyond sight, other wings move through the dusk, silent and unseen. The sky has opened its doors and life has stepped through. From now on, nothing will ever truly belong only to the ground again. Night drapes itself over the ocean, soft and infinite. The air cools, carrying the taste of salt and the whisper of distant waves. Clouds dissolve into starlight, and the first pale moon rises, a ghostly reflection on the sea below. For a long time the world seems to pause. Only the slow breathing of the earth remains, but even in the quiet, life never sleeps. The wind hums with faint movement. From the cliffs where the great flyer rests, a flicker of motion breaks the stillness. Smaller shapes, fragile silhouettes darting through the dim air. Early birds, their feathers catching what little light the stars allow, flutter between the rocks and the low trees that cling to the shore. Their calls are soft, uncertain, as if the night is still teaching them the shape of sound. These new wings are not like the leathery sails of the pterosaur. They are layered with delicate filaments, each feather catching air in 1,000 subtle ways. They move with precision rather than power, guided by instinct born from countless small ancestors that once leapt, glided and fell, learning the invisible laws of wind. Now, in the cool darkness, they move with quiet grace, the next breath in the long story of flight. High above, the pterosaur stirs. Its great head turns toward the sound, eyes glinting in moonlight. It watches the smaller wings move below, tilting and weaving through the air like sparks from a hidden fire. There is no rivalry in its gaze, only a calm acknowledgement. One form of life recognizing another that has learned to share its sky. Time passes like a tide, unmeasured. Stars drift westward. The moon lowers toward the sea. On the horizon, the first gray hint of dawn begins to stir again, faint as a memory. With it comes a shifting wind, cool and restless. The pterosaur spreads its wings, feeling the subtle pull of morning. Below, the feathered creatures retreat into the shelter of ferns and stone. The night has been theirs, but the dawn still belongs to the Ancient One. With a few slow beats, the pterosaur takes to the air once more. The wind catches it easily. It rises into the pale sky, moving toward the horizon where the sun waits beneath the waves. The world brightens second by second until light spills across the water in liquid gold. The creature glides through that light, a living shadow written against the day's first fire. As the sun climbs, the air warms and thickens again. Over the forests, mists curl upward, glowing in the sunlight like smoke. From within that green haze, wings begin to stir, hundreds of them. Small birds lift from the trees, their feathers wet with dew. They rise together, not in panic but in rhythm, as if the dawn itself has summoned them. Their movements are erratic but full of purpose, a dance of new possibilities. The air fills with sound, chirps, trills, whistles, each note testing the boundaries of silence. The pterosaur circles above them, massive but silent, gliding through their song. The birds below flash like pieces of sunlight, darting through shafts of brightness and shadow. The sky, once empty, now hums with layered motion, the first great orchestra of wings. As morning deepens, the pterosaur glides inland. Beneath it stretch endless plains broken by rivers and lagoons. The forests here are dense with color, deep greens, amber fronds, the purple shadows of massive trunks. Every leaf seems to move. Creatures crawl and climb, their scales catching flashes of light. And in the open clearings where the ground warms under the sun, smaller wings test the air, Feathered dinosaurs leaping from branches, gliding short distances, landing awkwardly, then trying again. This is the heart of change, the place where evolution experiments in silence. Some wings will never master flight, others will catch a lucky current, finding the balance between air and effort. Those that do will rise again stronger, more certain. The sky will remember their attempts. Farther along the coast, storms brew in the distance, tall clouds glowing from within, thunder echoing across miles. The wind picks up restless, curling through the valleys and over the ridges. The pterosaur leans into it, gliding effortlessly, wings flexing to read the air's language. Lightning flashes far away, illuminating the outline of its body against the darkening clouds. For a moment it looks like a creature made of light and shadow, suspended between sea and storm. Then the rain arrives, heavy, endless, washing the land clean. The flyer tilts downward, diving through sheets of water, wings slick and gleaming. It lands on a flat rock jutting from the cliff, folding itself small against the wind. The sea churns below, gray and furious. But even in the storm there is no fear, only the rhythm of the world returning to itself. Hours pass. The storm drifts inland, its voice fading. The sea softens again. From the trees the small birds re-emerge, shaking water from their feathers. Their calls return, hesitant at first, then confident, filling the washed air with sound. When the light returns, it is softer, filtered through layers of mist. The pterosaur opens its wings once more and steps off the rock, rising into the calm air left behind by the storm. Below, the land glows with moisture, every surface alive with color. The flyer circles high, its reflection rippling across flooded fields and quiet lakes. The sky has become its ocean. It moves as naturally as fish through water. As it glides, it passes over the forests again, where birds chase insects between trees, wings beating quick and bright. The air trembles with life. A new era has begun, though none of the creatures know it. What matters now is only the flight, the endless conversation between body and wind, sky and heartbeat. Evening approaches once more. The light fades to amber, then to rose. The pterosaur drifts westward, carried by invisible hands. Below, the forest breathes, the waves hum, and the sky glows like a fading ember. For a moment, the creature pauses midair, wings outstretched, balancing perfectly between updraft and gravity. It holds there, suspended in stillness, and the world seems to hold its breath with it. Then it glides on, vanishing into the horizon where the sea meets the clouds. The horizon breathes light once more. The night has passed and another day begins, though time has long since stopped meaning what it once did. Ages unfold like the turning of a single page. The world changes, but the sky remains, vast, tender, infinite. Across the forests, color bursts into motion. What was once experiment becomes mastery. Feathers spread wider, lighter, stronger. Beaks sharpen, eyes grow keener. Flight, once an accident of nature's curiosity, has become a promise kept. The air now belongs to countless forms. Wings of every size, every rhythm, every song. The early pterosaurs still claim the high currents, gliding effortlessly over oceans and mountains. But the birds, smaller, swifter, tireless, fill the spaces between. They weave through trees, skim the surface of rivers, rise in flocks that shimmer like breathing clouds. From shore to summit, the air thrums with them. Above the cliffs, one of the old flyers drifts alone. Its kind is fewer now, their reign beginning to fade, but its flight is still perfect. A slow, soundless dance with gravity. It glides through rising air, following invisible paths that only instinct can feel. The world below no longer looks the same. The forests are denser, darker. New plants bloom in colors that catch light like jewels. Lakes glitter where once there was plain. The earth has reshaped itself again, quietly, endlessly. As it circles higher, The pterosaur's shadow passes over a flock of birds gathered on a branchless tree. They take off at once, scattering in a burst of feathers. Their wings flash silver in the sun, each one a living reflection of the sky that birthed them. Their cries fade into the wind, leaving only the sound of air moving. Far out to sea, a storm is building. The horizon darkens, and the line between cloud and water disappears. The flyer turns toward it, drawn by the promise of wind. The first gusts arrive quickly, warm and strong, carrying the scent of salt and rain. The pterosaur leans into it, wings stretched wide, letting the storm lift it higher, faster, until the sea beneath is only color and motion. Lightning flickers inside the clouds, illuminating its body for a heartbeat, a ghost of motion caught in the breath of the planet. The rain begins, soft at first, then hard. The drops sting its skin, slide off its wings, fall away into the void below. It glides through it all steady and sure, part of the storm's own design. For a moment, sky, water, and creature become one, the oldest trinity of movement. When the storm passes, the air clears into impossible calm. The sea lies smooth, reflecting the sky perfectly. The sun breaks through, gilding every wave. The flyer circles once more, its wings catching gold. It is older now, slower, but its flight has never lost grace. It glides until the wind stills, then drifts downward, landing on a rocky ledge. There it rests, head low, breath deep. The sky stretches endlessly above, and the sea murmurs below as it has for eons. Time drifts on. Generations pass unseen. The great flyers fade, replaced by smaller, quicker lives. Feathers refine, colors bloom, songs fill the air. The sky becomes crowded but never chaotic, and a living, breathing harmony of motion. Flocks rise at dawn like mist, crossing mountains and rivers. Others dive at dusk, chasing insects that glint in the amber light. The air hums with purpose. The world has learned to move in 3 dimensions, and it will never forget. In the quiet hours between day and night, the forest canopy glows with the rustle of wings. The sound is soft but endless, the murmur of sleep, of flight remembered even in stillness. Birds tuck their heads beneath feathers, their hearts beating fast, their small bodies carrying the memory of every ancestor that ever dared to leap. The planet turns, seasons shift, the sky continues its slow story. From icy poles to steaming jungles, wings fill the world, gliding, darting, soaring, hovering.
Life has found its mirror in the air.
Where the sea once taught creatures to swim, the sky now teaches them to drift, to dance, to dream. Sometimes when storms gather, the wind grows full of ghosts. The shapes of the old pterosaurs seem to flicker for an instant, vast wings stretching through the mist, then fading again. The birds do not notice. Their song goes on. But the air remembers. The sky carries every flight that has ever been, even now. If you stand at the edge of the sea and look up, you can feel it. That quiet pulse. The echo of the first wings that dared to lift from the earth. The rhythm of feathers. The weightless silence that exists between heartbeats. The air moves around you. The same air that once carried the giants and the dreamers of long ago. Above the green earth, wings still catch the wind. Each one, no matter how small, carries a fragment of that first impossible moment when life touched the clouds, when the world discovered freedom not in conquest, but in grace. The sun sets again. The last light burns red across the horizon. Flocks turn dark against the glow, silhouettes tracing invisible paths home. The sea below mirrors the sky, each wave a reflection of a beating wing. The air cools, softens. The world exhales, and somewhere high above, unseen in the fading light, a single bird glides. It moves without hurry, without fear, following the breath of the wind. Its wings curve with perfect ease, its body silent against the evening air. For a moment, the entire planet seems to balance on that flight. The memory of stone, the whisper of feathers, the eternal promise of sky. The creature drifts westward into the deepening dusk. The stars awaken one by one, and their light gathers on its wings until it seems to glow from within. It does not look down, for there is nothing to look at, only endless air, endless night, endless peace. The sky belongs to wings. It always has. It always will. Morning arrives without sound. The world is whole, suspended in a breath between motion and rest. Mist clings to the rivers, coiling around ferns and fallen trunks. Dew gathers on the long grass, glinting like fragments of glass under the new sun. Every leaf trembles with the weight of water and light. In the still air, time itself seems to hesitate, stretching thin over the surface of the earth. The land is ancient but not old in spirit. It hums softly with life, slow, patient, balanced. The river moves through the forest in curves, not haste. Fish drift beneath the surface, scales flashing silver in the filtered light. Insects dance above them, wings catching the shimmer of day. On the banks, tall reeds sway, whispering against one another. The rhythm of life unfolds so gently that the eye almost misses it. In the shadow of towering trees, a small herd of plant-eaters grazes. They move together, massive but calm, their bodies painted in dust and sunlight. Each breath is deep, steady, unhurried. Their long necks sweep across the canopy, stripping leaves in slow arcs. Beneath them, smaller creatures scurry in the underbrush, living between their footsteps. The ground shakes faintly, but no one flees, and this is not fear. It is the sound of life continuing exactly as it should. Farther away, a lake lies motionless. Steam rises from its surface in thin veils, catching the gold of dawn. Along the water's edge, a predator waits. Its eyes are steady, its body motionless, the patience of ages written in the curve of its spine. It does not stalk, it does not lunge, not yet. For now it listens. The world speaks to it through ripples and scent. The prey it seeks is near, but so is the balance it serves. When it moves, it will move only once. The air changes. A faint rustle. The predator's muscles tighten, then release. It steps forward through the reeds, slow as breathing. The herd beyond does not notice. They are lost in their endless rhythm of feeding and walking, feeding and walking. A few birds lift from the trees, startled by nothing, their calls echoing through the stillness. The predator pauses again, the air thick with sunlight and dust. It waits. When it finally strikes, the motion is pure simplicity, a shape moving through space, fulfilling its nature. There is no cruelty here, no malice. Only the old exchange of hunger and surrender, written long before memory began. The herd scatters briefly, not in panic but in instinct, their hooves sending small clouds of earth into the light. Moments later, the forest returns to silence. Life, death, and stillness coexist in a single breath. The circle has turned again, unchanged. Above, the sky is soft and pale. The first winged shapes cross it, not soaring but gliding gently, reading the invisible lines of wind. Their shadows ripple across the ground, fleeting, delicate. A few feathers fall, drifting downward, caught briefly in the warm air before coming to rest on the water's edge. They join the reflection of trees, ripples spreading outward, fading into glass. The forest deepens into noon. Heat gathers beneath the canopy, and the air grows heavy with scent. Sap, soil, and something sweet from the flowering ferns. Small creatures hide beneath leaves, waiting for cooler hours. Others bask in shafts of sunlight that pierce the branches, their scales glimmering like metal. Life contracts, rests, holds its breath. The sound of insects rises and falls like distant music. Every vibration, every heartbeat, a note in the same unending song. Far away, thunder murmurs across the horizon. Clouds rise in tall columns, white at the top, gray below. The wind shifts, carrying the promise of rain. Leaves turn upward as if listening. The great plant-eaters lift their heads too, nostrils flaring. They know this rhythm as well as the pulse of their own blood. The earth breathes in. Soon it will exhale in rain. The first drops fall softly, tapping on leaves and water. Then the sky opens. The rain comes heavy and endless, washing the world clean. The river swells, the soil darkens, and the air fills with the scent of life renewed. The giants stand still beneath the downpour, their hides glistening, their eyes calm. Streams run down their bodies, pooling at their feet before joining the flood. Smaller creatures hide in burrows and hollows, feeling the tremor of rain through the earth. Hours pass like moments. The storm fades as gently as it came, leaving behind only dripping leaves and silver air. The sun breaks through, lighting every droplet into fire. Mist rises again, curling between the trunks, softening the world back into silence. Everything breathes. Everything endures. In that stillness, you can almost feel the heartbeat of the planet. Slow, deep, eternal. No creature rules here. None is ruled. Each life feeds another. Each death nourishes the next. The river carries fallen leaves downstream to become soil. The soil feeds roots, the roots feed trees, the trees feed breath itself. Every motion, every pause, part of the same unbroken rhythm played for millions of years in perfect peace. The sun lowers toward the edge of the trees, its light turning amber, then bronze. The forest exhales a long breath, warm air rising into the cooling sky. Shadows stretch across the river, bending with the ripples. The day is ending, but nothing hurries. Time slides forward like drifting water. No rush, no sound, but the pulse of life moving quietly through its cycle. In the open clearings, the great grazers begin to settle. Their massive bodies move like the tide, slow and certain. Dust lifts with each step, catching the fading light. They gather near the river, drinking deeply, their reflections rippling across the surface like soft mirrors. Their eyes dark and calm, carry no thought of tomorrow. For them, existence is enough. Each mouthful of water, each breath, each moment of stillness part of a sacred balance too ancient to break. Beneath the ferns, smaller lives stir. Creatures the size of hands with scales like stone and eyes like drops of amber move through fallen leaves. They stop often, heads tilting, listening to the soft rhythm of distant footsteps. Overhead, insects hum, their wings glinting gold in the last rays of sun. The air is heavy with warmth, thick with the scent of wet earth and life. High above, birds, or what will one day become them, cross the sky in pairs. Their wings beat softly, steady as a heartbeat. They are not chasing anything, not fleeing, only following invisible paths carved by the evening wind. The air hums with their motion, with the faint whispers of feathers brushing the dusk. The light deepens into orange, then red. The trees seem to catch fire at their edges, leaves glowing like coals. The surface of the lake mirrors the sky, a molten reflection of time itself. On the far side, a ripple moves through the reeds. A predator steps forward, its shape tall and slender, muscles like shadow beneath skin. Its movements are careful, deliberate, as though each step must honor the stillness of the world. It stops at the water's edge, dipping its head to drink. Ripples spread outward in perfect circles, fading into peace. The prey nearby watches from the trees, not in fear, but in awareness. This is the law of their world, not violence, but balance. They know the hunger that drives the hunter, just as they know the hunger that drives the leaf to reach for light. There is no cruelty here, only continuity. The circle holds. The forest breathes. As twilight deepens, the sounds of day give way to the voices of night. The insects rise in chorus, a million tiny vibrations merging into one continuous hum. From the marshes, deep calls echo, slow, resonant, ancient. Somewhere beyond the trees, the rustle of scales against bark. The night is alive but not restless. Each sound finds its place, fitting into the same vast rhythm that began long before memory. The stars appear one by one. Their light touches the lake, turning it to silver. The air cools, the mists return. The creatures of the day sink into stillness, eyes closing, hearts slowing. Even the hunters lie down, their breaths deep and even. The forest falls into a soft equilibrium, where motion itself seems sacred, a whisper in the silence of endless time. The moon rises, pale, distant, indifferent, and spills its glow over the land. It catches the outlines of leaves, horns, wings, and water, turning everything ghostly and calm. The air smells of wet moss and sleep. Somewhere, a lone flyer glides between treetops, its silhouette passing across the moon like a thought through a dream. In the shallows, fish drift beneath the reflected stars. Tiny creatures stir in the mud, unseen but vital. They move the world in ways no eye can witness, filtering, feeding, transforming. The unseen life beneath the surface is just as grand as the creatures above it. The balance depends on both, on the mighty and the minute, on the roar and the ripple, on everything that breathes and everything that doesn't. The night grows deeper. Mist thickens until the world becomes a painting of light and shadow, blurred and eternal. The forest holds its breath. For a long moment it feels as if nothing moves, as if the planet itself is pausing between heartbeats. Then gently a breeze begins again. The leaves tremble, water ripples, the stars shimmer faintly. The world turns once more. Far off, lightning flickers behind distant hills, not a storm yet, just a whisper of change. The creatures do not notice. Their sleep is older than fear. Even the predators dream in peace tonight, carried by the same quiet pulse that keeps everything alive. There is no past or future here, only the endless now. The night hums with its own slow heartbeat. In the dark, unseen roots drink from the soil. Unseen insects carve paths through fallen leaves. Every small act feeds another. The chain is infinite, the pattern perfect. Above it all, the stars watch, patient, cold, and kind. Their light falls on scales and feathers, on the surface of still water, on the faces of sleeping creatures. It is the same light that has always shone, the same light that will outlast them all. Every leaf, every ripple, every breath, part of an unbroken rhythm, played for millions of years in perfect peace. Before the first light touches the treetops, the world is gray and quiet. Mist drifts low across the water, curling like smoke between the roots of giant ferns. The forest lies in half-sleep, not lifeless, but resting, waiting. Somewhere in the darkness, the slow ripple of a fish, the soft wing beat of a nocturnal flyer returning home. The air is cool, sweet, ancient. Then, almost imperceptibly, the color begins to change. A faint silver glow spreads across the horizon. The outlines of trees sharpen, shadows draw back. The first breath of morning wind moves through the leaves, carrying the scent of wet bark and stone. It is the same wind that has moved through this place for 100 million years, reshaping, remembering, forgiving. Dew trembles on every surface, on blades of grass, on the edges of feathers, on the smooth curve of an egg half buried in sand. Each drop holds the reflection of a world waking slowly to itself. The light deepens to gold. It spills through the canopy, breaking into rays that scatter like dust in water. The first call comes, a low, throaty sound from somewhere in the distance. Then another, higher, like an echo. Soon the forest hums again, voices overlapping, merging, rising. The chorus of life resumes. What was still becomes alive once more. From the shadows, the grazers emerge, their silhouettes huge against the new sun. Their skin glows faintly in the light, each muscle moving with deliberate grace. They step through the mist like ancient spirits returning to their rhythm. One lowers its head to the grass, dew clinging to its snout. Another pauses to listen, to feel the pulse beneath its feet. There is peace in their motion, a peace born not of safety but of belonging. At the river, water glides over stone in a continuous whisper. The storm from days past has filled its veins again, and the current gleams with light. Tiny ripples chase each other downstream, where reeds bend gently in greeting. A dragonfly hovers above the surface, wings like glass catching the sunrise. The reflection of the sky dances beneath it, endless, patient. A predator watches from the other side, lean, still, half hidden by reeds. Its breath fogs faintly in the morning chill. The water's scent tells it everything, the movement of fish, the presence of prey. But it does not rush. Hunger, too, has its place in balance. It waits, each heartbeat aligned with the rhythm of the river, each breath measured against the calm. Nearby, small creatures move unseen, amphibians in shallow pools, insects tunneling beneath the soil, ancient mammals no larger than a hand rustling through fallen leaves. Each one carries its own quiet purpose, unseen but vital. Together they weave the invisible fabric that holds the greater world in place. Above, the sky opens wide. Clouds drift slowly, white against blue. A few winged shapes cross the air, some vast and silent, others small and swift. Their shadows sweep the ground, fleeting but graceful. The forest responds in kind, branches shifting, leaves turning as though the very trees are breathing with them. As the day unfolds, warmth returns to the soil. The smell of life thickens, not resin, pollen, decay, growth. It is not beautiful in a human way. It is something deeper, a reminder that creation and destruction are not opposites here. They are the same gesture mirrored through time. A fallen branch lies across the riverbank, half buried in mud. Moss climbs its surface, green and soft. Tiny plants root in the cracks, drinking the last of the rain. Beneath it, the larvae of insects chew through the wood, transforming death into soil, soil into life. Each cycle feeding the next, each ending quietly, beginning again. By midday, the forest hums with movement. Nothing is loud, yet everything speaks. The grazers feed beneath the trees. Predators watch from shade. Flocks of winged creatures cross patches of light. Every sound, and the rustle of leaves, the ripple of water, the click of insects, blends into a single living harmony. This is what eternity feels like. Not stillness, but flow. Change so constant it becomes peace. Every heartbeat of every creature, every sigh of wind, every falling leaf belongs to the same rhythm. There are no mistakes here, no accidents. Even hunger, even death are balanced perfectly within the song. When the afternoon fades toward dusk again, the light softens, returning everything to gold. The forest grows quieter, as though preparing to rest. The grazers move toward open meadows, the predators to higher ground. Birds settle in branches, wings folding like prayers. The river glows with fire as the sun sinks low. Insects dance above the water one last time before night. Ripples spread outward and vanish one after another. The air cools, the colors deepen. The planet exhales, night rises. The stars return, and beneath them the ancient world continues. The endless breathing of soil, leaf, water, bone, and air. The balance never breaks. It only shifts, expands, contracts, flows again. If you could stand here and listen long enough, you would hear it. The pulse beneath everything. The silent music that has played since the first cell divided, the first breath filled the air, the first leaf reached for light. It is the same rhythm that still moves through the earth now, unchanged, unnoticed, eternal. The world turns once more in sleep. The creatures rest, the rivers whisper, the stars watch. The circle closes and opens again. Every leaf, every ripple, every breath, part of an unbroken rhythm, played for millions of years in perfect peace. The air was golden on that final evening. The world did not know it was ending. It was only breathing as it always had. Forests whispered with life. Rivers shone like threads of glass, and the wind moved through canopies that had swayed for millions of years. The sky was wide, endless, blue as an ocean. The same sky that had carried wings, storms, and sunlight across ages beyond memory. In the soft warmth of dusk, the giants moved across the land. Their steps were steady, rhythmic, ancient, echoes of the same heart that had beaten since time first began to dream. Long-necked shapes moved between the trees, their silhouettes golden in the light. Each step stirred dust that glowed like embers in the setting sun. Nearby, smaller creatures drank from a shallow lake, their reflections trembling in the water. The world was calm. Everything was as it should be. But above it all, beyond the reach of clouds and wind, something new appeared. A small distant spark against the infinite dark. It was faint at first, like a star that had wandered too close to the edge of sight. No creature looked up to see it. No wind changed its song. The earth continued its quiet rhythm, unaware that the light was growing brighter. As night came, the sky deepened into velvet black. The stars shimmered, patient as always, scattered like grains of salt across eternity. The tiny light moved among them, slow and graceful. To any who could have seen it, it would have seemed beautiful. A visitor from far beyond, gliding silently toward the blue planet below. The next day dawned clear and warm. The forest awoke to birdsong and the sound of wind through leaves. The rivers gleamed, the air shimmered with life. The great herds wandered the plains again, their shadows long and soft. Nothing seemed different, yet something faint and new lingered at the edge of the horizon. A strange shimmer in the daylight, a brightness that felt alive. By afternoon, that brightness had become a line, stretching across the sky like a stroke of silver fire. Still, the world did not tremble. The trees swayed as they always had. The rivers carried light on their backs. The creatures lifted their heads for a moment, then lowered them again. The air grew warmer, not harshly, but with a strange golden weight. The light above was no longer distant. It pulsed, slow and alive, a heartbeat from the heavens. And then, in one endless moment, the sky changed. It was not violent. It was not sound or fear. It was light, pure, vast, blinding, a second sun blooming across the horizon. The air shimmered. The clouds burned white and shadows vanished. The earth itself seemed to hold its breath. In the forests, the light passed through every leaf, every droplet, every wing. It turned rivers into mirrors of fire and stone into glass. The sound that followed was deep, like the heartbeat of the planet itself. A slow, endless exhale. Mountains shuddered, seas rose, the sky rippled. Then just as quickly the light faded. The brightness was gone, leaving behind only a soft, strange silence. The creatures lifted their heads, blinking. The world was changed, though they could not know how. Dust drifted down like snow, coating leaves and scales alike. The air smelled different, sharp, metallic, ancient. The sun dimmed behind a growing haze, its warmth muted, its light thin. But still the world was not afraid. The herds continued their slow movements. The rivers kept flowing. The forests whispered in the dim glow. The rhythm of life, old and steady, did not break. It only softened. The small light in the sky was gone now, vanished beyond the clouds it had made. But its memory lingered, not in fire but in calm, in stillness, in the faint hum of a planet beginning to rest. As twilight came once more, the air turned cool. The dust thickened, painting the horizon in muted reds and grays. The stars did not appear. The moon was veiled. Yet even in this half-darkness, the earth remained beautiful, a quiet world wrapped in a slow, golden dream. The giants stood still, watching nothing, listening to the silence. Their shadows disappeared in the dim light. The rivers glowed faintly, silver beneath the dust. Wind whispered through the dying forests, not in grief but in reverence. The world was closing its eyes. Even endings can be gentle. The giants did not scream. They simply faded into the long sleep of time. The light faded little by little, day after day. The sun still rose, but its warmth no longer reached the ground as before. The sky, once blue and endless, had turned to a soft gray veil. The clouds hung low, heavy with dust. The horizon blurred where earth met air. Everything shimmered faintly as though the world itself had turned translucent, fading gently out of its own reflection. Forests still stood, but their colors dimmed. Leaves carried a thin coat of ash, pale as frost. When the wind passed, it lifted slow spirals into the air. Not storm, not smoke, just drifting light. The rivers, once brilliant with the sun's fire, now ran darker, slower. The water mirrored a sky without brightness. Each ripple seemed to move reluctantly, as though even the flow of time had begun to tire. The great herds wandered through this soft dusk. Their outlines moved like shadows through mist. They did not rush, did not hide. Their instincts still followed the old rhythms. Walk, feed, rest, breathe. But the food grew scarce and the air grew colder. When they raised their heads, their eyes reflected the dim sky, patient, calm, unaware of endings. Above, the wind sang softly through the empty branches. The sound was neither sad nor fearful. It was the same sound that had always been there, the breath of the earth moving through all things. Only now it felt slower, lower, as if the planet itself were whispering to sleep. Far to the north, the sea moved under a sky the color of metal. The waves carried lines of dust across the surface. Each crest shimmered faintly, then sank again. On the shores, no footprints lasted long. The wind erased them almost as soon as they were made. Still, the world endured. Life held on in quiet corners. Small wings beneath fallen trees. Small hearts beating in hollows of stone. The predators, too, moved with less fire. Their hunger remained, but their world no longer answered it as easily. They grew slower, thinner, but still they moved, not in desperation, but as though following a dream that would not stop. The circle turned even now, though its rhythm had changed, and then gradually the air grew colder still. The haze thickened until the sun became a ghostly disk in the sky. Light fell in soft beams through the mist, pale and strange. Shadows were no longer sharp. They drifted, faded, and disappeared. The warmth of the world drew inward, hiding in roots, in caves, in the quiet breath of sleeping things. Nights stretched longer. The stars, when they appeared, glimmered faintly, distant and small, as though the sky itself had forgotten how to shine. The air no longer smelled of leaves and water. It smelled of stillness, of resting earth. But there was no chaos. The world did not break. It was only sleeping, vast and slow and ancient. The forests that once sang with life now whispered in dreams. The rivers moved beneath thin ice, still carving paths even as they froze. The herd stood close together in silence, their breath forming small clouds that hung and faded. Above them, the mountains watched in eternal patience, dust collecting on their peaks like memory. The earth had seen many changes before, fire, flood, and frost, and it knew how to endure. This was only another turning, another long night before dawn. Even as silence deepened, seeds lay hidden in the dark soil, waiting for the touch of light again. Beneath the ice, tiny hearts still beat. The pattern of life had not ended. It had only gone quiet. A single wind rose one evening, stronger than before. It swept through the plains, across the rivers, through the valleys, and over the ridges. It carried with it the last songs of leaves, the last warmth of day, and the dust of all that had come before. It moved gently, wrapping the world in a long, tender sigh. When it passed, the air grew perfectly still. No motion, no sound, only the deep, endless quiet of a planet remembering itself. The giants stood motionless beneath the dim sky, their outlines fading slowly into the gray. There was no struggle, no pain. The earth had simply grown tired of light for a while. The great creatures bowed to that rhythm without protest. One by one they rested, and the world accepted their stillness like a prayer. Above, the haze thickened until even the moon was only a faint circle in the distance. The air cooled further, soft and clean. The last fires in the heart of the forests dimmed and the planet began to dream. It dreamed of rain, of warmth, of green yet to come. It dreamed of wings yet to rise again, of voices that would someday sing where silence now reigned. It dreamed not of loss but of return, the slow eternal promise that nothing in creation is truly gone, only changed. The night grew longer. The stars dimmed and brightened again behind the veil. Time moved like a breath in sleep, steady, endless. The old world faded, but its echo remained, woven into the bones of the earth itself. Even endings can be gentle. The giants did not scream. They simply faded into the long sleep of time. The silence lasted for what seemed like forever, but in the language of the earth, forever is just a breath. Time flowed beneath the stillness like a quiet river, carving unseen paths through the dark. Mountains shifted. Oceans whispered. The air grew thin and then heavy again. The world turned beneath its veil, dreaming. Deep beneath the frozen soil, warmth pulsed faintly. The memory of fire, the heart of the planet still alive. It beat slowly, steadily, waiting. In hidden places, small sparks of life endured, fragile yet determined, carrying the story of all that had been. They did not know they were survivors. They simply continued because that is what life does. The world turned once more toward the sun. The thick shroud of dust began to settle, grain by grain falling softly into the waiting earth. The air lightened. The faintest glow returned to the horizon. Not yet dawn, but a promise. The first beam of light in ages stretched across the sky, golden and thin, cutting through the haze like memory breaking through sleep. The warmth touched the tops of mountains first. Frost glimmered there, melting into tiny rivulets that traced paths down into valleys long buried in shadow. It kissed the ocean's surface next, where the waves shivered as though remembering movement. The earth exhaled. The stillness loosened its hold. The silence began to breathe. In time, the forest that had fallen to ash would rise again. New leaves would unfold from the bones of the old. Ferns would unfurl from damp stone, their green, delicate, and new. Tiny creatures would scurry across the ground, their movements quick and uncertain, tasting the air as though they had never known such light before. Birds, small, bright and fearless, one would take to the air, filling it with songs that had not been heard for ages. They were not echoes of the old giants, but descendants of their spirit. Wings carrying the same rhythm, the same endurance, but now lighter, freer. Each song was a continuation of a melody that had never truly stopped. The ocean stirred with life again. Tiny forms drifted in the shallows, pulsing gently in the returning warmth. Coral would bloom, soft and slow, painting the seabed in colors unseen since the world went quiet. Fish flickered like quicksilver beneath the surface, darting through beams of light that danced on the water. The earth was awake again, but it was different now, wiser, gentler. The memory of stillness remained deep in its heart, shaping every sound, every breath of wind, every wave that broke on shore. Even the storms seemed softer, as if the world itself remembered what it meant to be quiet, to rest, to begin again. Where the great dinosaurs once walked, forests spread like a green sea. Trees reached skyward, their roots winding through layers of old stone. Beneath their shade, mammals, small, curious, and fragile, began their cautious exploration. They did not yet know the world belonged to them, nor that the silence had made space for their voices. They moved through the undergrowth in wonder, sniffing the air heavy with rain and memory. The sky was wide again. Clouds drifted slowly, pale and full of light. When rain came, it fell in silver threads, soft and cleansing, washing away the dust of ages. The earth drank deeply as though waking from a long dream. Rivers laughed again, their voices new yet ancient, echoing through valleys that had forgotten sound. There was no fanfare, no announcement of return. Life never arrives with noise. It arrives quietly, the way dawn replaces night, the way a breath follows another. The earth reborn simply began to move again. The bones of the old giants remained buried in the soil, not as ruins but as roots of memory. Stone embraced them, turning them into monuments of what had been, and from that same ground new life grew, weaving itself around those ancient remnants. The circle was complete. The meteor that once brought darkness had long since become dust, part of the soil, part of the air, part of the story. Its purpose had not been destruction, only change. From its fire, new beginnings had been forged. The end of one song had made space for another. And so, in the still corners of the world, the earth began to hum again, softly, almost imperceptibly. A tone beneath all tones, the rhythm of existence patient and eternal. Every ripple in a pond, every whisper of wind through leaves, every heartbeat in every creature, all part of that unbroken music. The silence had not been the end. It had been a breath, a pause between verses, a chance for the universe to listen to itself. Time continued its endless flow. The stars wheeled above once more, and the moon cast silver paths across sleeping seas. Mountains rose higher and rivers carved new paths. The world did what it had always done, changed, endured and dreamed. And though the giants were gone, their memory remained in the bones of the earth, in the wings of birds, in the pulse of every living thing. The great silence had passed, but its lesson endured, that every ending carries the seed of what will come next. The world was quiet again, but not empty. It was full of possibility, full of whispers of futures waiting to unfold. And if one could listen closely enough, beneath the rustle of leaves and the sigh of waves, one could still hear it, the slow, eternal heartbeat of a planet that never truly sleeps. This completes the great silence, reaching the full 3,000-word span across its three parts. A calm, cinematic meditation on the quiet end and the gentle rebirth of the world after the age of the dinosaurs. The world is quiet now. The forests have changed, the skies have softened, and the creatures that walk the land no longer carry the thunder of ancient footsteps. But beneath it all, far below roots and rivers, the earth remembers. It holds its memory not in words but in stone. Stone does not hurry. It listens, it endures, and it waits. Layers of time press gently upon one another, folding and settling until what was once living becomes part of something greater. The earth has no need to forget. Every grain of dust, every ripple of shell, every bone turned to crystal remains. In the silence below there is no past or present, only presence. Imagine walking through a desert where the ground glitters faintly under the sun. Beneath your feet there are bones turned to opal, leaves etched into rock, the imprints of ancient rain. Each mark is a voice, faint but unbroken, whispering the same song that has been sung for hundreds of millions of years. The song of I was here. If you were to place your hand on the surface of such a stone, you might feel nothing. Yet beneath that stillness, the story continues. It is not a story told in sound or color, but in the weight of memory. The earth speaks in deep time, in patience so vast it humbles everything built upon it. Mountains rise and crumble, seas bloom and fade, continents drift apart and kiss again, but the stone beneath carries all of it, layer upon layer of what once was. The world you stand on has known forests before the first eyes opened to see them. It has known oceans that vanished into air, and skies that rained fire. And somewhere entombed in that unbroken archive lie the bones of the giants, the long-necked wanderers who once grazed beneath endless suns, the winged forms that once touched the wind, the hunters who once moved like shadows across fern-filled plains. Their bones rest now in silence, but they have not disappeared. They have only become part of the planet's breath. Each fossil is not a relic of death, but of transformation. Life turned to memory. Memory turned to stone. Even as they slept beneath layers of sand and silt, the world above kept moving. Rain fell, seeds sprouted, rivers wandered. Yet beneath it all, the record deepened. Time wrote its chapters patiently, word by word, in the language of geology. In that silence, something almost sacred happens. The bones lose their flesh and warmth, but not their meaning. Minerals seep through them, filling each space where blood once flowed. They are rewritten by the earth, not erased. The old shapes are preserved, the outlines of breath itself captured in stone. Imagine the feeling of being so deeply remembered that you become part of the planet's body. That even after the wind forgets your name and the sky changes its face, the earth keeps your story in its heart. That is what the fossils are. The planet's memory of its own dream. And now, millions of years later, hands reach into the ground to touch that dream again. Pale light shines on a buried skeleton, and once more time folds in upon itself. The past is not gone. It rises quietly to meet the present like an echo that never stopped moving. The scientists who kneel beside those ancient bones often whisper without realizing it. Their voices drop low, their gestures slow. It is not simply because of awe. It is because the ground beneath them feels alive with history. The very dust they brush away carries the remnants of sunlight that fell before humanity existed. Each discovery is a conversation across eternity. The bones do not answer in words, yet they tell everything. How the creature moved, how it breathed, how it stood beneath a sky that no longer exists. Each detail carved by pressure and time, each curve a note in an ancient melody. Even the air seems to pause around such moments. The wind that sweeps across the dig site carries a kind of hush, as though the earth itself is listening to what is being uncovered. In those brief, fragile instants, the boundary between now and then disappears, because time is not a straight line. It spirals, it folds, it lingers. The same atoms that once belonged to a dinosaur's bone may now drift in the ocean, or pulse in the blood of a living creature. Everything continues, just in different forms. Stone remembers the weight of giants. Water remembers their thirst. The wind remembers the shape of their wings. And the earth, and patient, eternally, holds it all without judgment, without sorrow. Beneath mountains in silent rock, their stories remain. And if you listen long enough, if you let your mind sink past the noise of the present and into the pulse of the world beneath you, you might almost hear it in a hum low and endless. Like the heartbeat of time itself, it is not a sound, but a feeling. The knowing that everything that ever lived still lives somewhere, somehow, in the deep structure of the universe. The stones beneath our feet are not cold graves. They are the pages of the longest story ever told. Beneath the layers of soil and silence, time does not rush. It moves in waves so slow that a single heartbeat could last 1,000 years. Pressure, heat, stillness, all working together like unseen hands shaping eternity. The earth knows patience in a way no living thing can. Every stone, every grain of sand once flowed as something else. A mountain crumbles into dust. A river carries that dust to the sea. The sea lays it down again, presses, hardens, and lifts it skyward once more. What was once high becomes low. What was once alive becomes mineral, and what was once forgotten returns as land. The earth breathes in this rhythm, inhale, exhale, for millions upon millions of years. Inside those layers, tiny imprints rest side by side. The curve of a fern leaf, the ripple of an ancient tide, the feather of a bird that once rode the wind before there were names for air or sky. When sunlight touches those fossils now, it awakens something old, a shimmer of recognition between past and present. To the earth, time is not distance but depth. The deeper one goes, the closer one gets to the beginning. Beneath the topsoil of now lies yesterday, and beneath that lies 1,000 yesterdays pressed into stone. You can hold a rock in your hand and unknowingly cradle the memory of fire, water and life older than imagination. Sometimes, in the quiet spaces of caves or canyons, the air itself feels ancient, cool, heavy with the scent of stone and hidden rivers. You breathe it in and feel it settle inside you, like a forgotten story finding its listener again. The stillness there is not emptiness. It is presence pure and patient. The fossils rest without regret. They do not mourn what was lost. They simply are. Their purpose has changed, that is all. Once they moved and ate and breathed. Now they teach, they remind, they endure. Their silence speaks with a wisdom deeper than words, that existence itself is sacred. No matter its form, even now far above them, the living world continues to walk upon their graves, yet grave is the wrong word. There is no death here, only transformation. The roots of trees dig down through layers of memory, drawing minerals from the bones of giants. Those minerals feed the leaves feed the air, and the air feeds us. The circle never broke. It simply grew wider. If you listen during rain, you might hear the rhythm echoing through everything. The drops strike the ground and sink deep, passing through time as they fall, through layers of ash, through beds of old seas, through strata filled with the dust of stars. When that water rises again as mist or cloud, it carries within it a whisper of all it touched. Even rain remembers. The wind too has memory. It moves across deserts and cliffs, picking up fragments of dust that once belonged to scales, shells, and feathers. Each breath you take may carry a particle that was part of some ancient being, a reminder that the distance between then and now is only an illusion of perception. The bones of dinosaurs turned to crystal and stone, but their essence remains in everything that followed. You can see it in the curve of a bird's wing, in the rhythm of a lizard's step, in the architecture of every creature that breathes. Evolution is simply memory reshaping itself into new forms. In the silence of night, when the air cools and the earth exhales, the line between living and remembered grows thin. Somewhere beneath your feet, the stone still hums with the warmth of what was. It does not fade. It transforms that warmth into energy that moves mountains, drives oceans, and feeds the core of the world. The great fossils sleep in their mineral beds, surrounded by layers of time like blankets. They rest under continents, under forests, under cities that did not exist when they lived. Yet if you could listen carefully, truly listen, you would hear their lullaby and slow vibrations, deep as thunder felt through the chest rather than heard with ears. That is the voice of the earth remembering itself. Every heartbeat, every whisper of air across your skin, every sound you hear is shaped by that ancient rhythm. The mountains themselves are echoes frozen in motion, their ridges and valleys molded by the same forces that preserve the bones below. The earth is not a graveyard. It is a library, vast, silent, sacred, every stone a page, every fossil a word, and together they form a story so immense that no mind can hold it all. Yet we feel it instinctively in quiet moments. Standing on a rocky shore at dusk, hearing waves that have broken the same way for eons, watching the stars shimmer above and knowing they too are ancient memories of light. We are not apart from this memory. We are made of it. The calcium in our bones once belonged to oceans that covered the world before any creature walked upon land. The iron in our blood was born in the hearts of stars that died long before our sun ignited. We carry within us the very same story that the stones tell, only in a language written in flesh and breath instead of mineral and pressure. To touch the ground, then, is to touch the infinite, to place your hand on the surface of all that ever was and all that will be. Beneath that surface, the past is alive, not as ghosts but as roots, as foundations, as whispers that tell the earth who it is. Time never truly leaves. It folds, it repeats, it changes its shape. The line between now and then is as thin as dust. And when you close your eyes and listen to the quiet hum beneath you, that faint vibration that seems to rise from the soles of your feet to the space behind your eyes, You are hearing the same lullaby that the world has always sung to itself. The night deepens and the world seems to slow its breathing. Stars shimmer faintly above, their light crossing millions of years just to brush the edge of your eyes. The same light once fell on the scales of the dinosaurs, on the rippling seas, where ancient creatures swam, on the fern forests that have long turned to coal. The stars have watched everything. They too are keepers of memory. If you stand in the quiet long enough, you can feel it, the pulse of the planet beneath your feet. It is slow, steady, unbroken, the same rhythm that has moved through every age. Beneath mountains, beneath rivers, beneath all the lives that came and went, the earth hums its ancient song. Somewhere deep below, layers of rock shift with a sigh that takes millennia. In those vast chambers of silence, fossils rest like thoughts that never needed words, each one a sentence in the story of existence written in the slow alphabet of stone. When rain falls, it drips through cracks in the rock, touching bones that have not seen light for ages. It lingers there for a moment, a single drop bridging the living and the remembered, before moving on, carrying a trace of that memory with it. And when that same water rises again into mist, and the mist becomes a cloud, and the cloud breaks open into rain once more, the past and present touch again. Everything circles. Everything returns. Time is not a river flowing away. It is an ocean turning upon itself. Every moment, every heartbeat, every sigh is part of its tide. The lives that came before are not gone. They are the currents beneath your own existence. When you breathe, the air you take in once passed through the lungs of other beings. Through birds, through trees, through creatures long vanished. The breath of the ancient world still moves in you. The molecules remember. They carry stories older than words, older than thought, older than the sun. Even the dust that drifts through a shaft of light is ancient. It may have once been part of a mountain or a shell, or the wing of a dragonfly that lived before time had a name. The world is not made of moments lost, but of moments remembered in endless transformation. The fossils whisper this truth in the language of stillness. They do not speak to be heard, they speak to be felt. Their message is not sorrow but continuity. The dinosaurs did not vanish into nothingness. They became part of the next verse of the same song, in birds, in stone, in us. The earth is not mourning them, it is holding them. The mountains cradle their shapes, the rivers trace their paths, and the soil nurtures the life that came from their remains. Their story never ended. It became the foundation for everything that followed. Listen closely. The silence is not empty. It is full of memory. Beneath the wind's gentle sigh, beneath the rhythm of your heartbeat, there is another sound. Faint, deep, endless. It is the echo of all that has ever lived, moving through the bones of the planet like music through an instrument. And in that music, there is peace. The world does not rush toward endings. It turns gently from one form to another, from breath to dust, to stone to star. The same matter that once formed the skeleton of a great creature may now shimmer in the dust of Saturn's rings. The same carbon that built its heart may now rest in a leaf or a heartbeat or a dream. Beneath mountains, in silent rock, their stories remain. And when you walk across the earth, through forests, through deserts, along shorelines where waves have whispered for eons, remember that you are walking across memory itself. The ground beneath you is alive with history, with presence, with transformation. Every step is a conversation with time. The air cools as night deepens. The stars gleam like embers scattered across the dark. Somewhere far below, The earth continues its slow and endless rotation, carrying all that ever was with it. And as you listen to that steady hum, that eternal heartbeat beneath the quiet of the night, you begin to feel it, the stillness, the connection, the endless continuity of being. The giants may have fallen, but their echoes remain in everything. The shape of their bones is written in cliffs and valleys, in the layers of color carved by wind and rain. Their memory hums beneath our cities, our forests, our seas. You can feel them in the warmth of the earth after rain, in the faint scent of stone in the wind. They are not gone. They are only changed. And as your eyes grow heavy, as your breath slows, you drift with them, through the long corridors of time, through the soft pulse of the planet, through the dreams of stone. You feel the age of the earth beneath you. Vast, ancient, kind. It does not judge, it does not end. It simply continues, always becoming, always remembering. The stars above turn slowly, marking the quiet rhythm of eternity. The wind carries whispers from the mountains, from the seas, from the stones themselves, and as you drift toward sleep, the last words rise from the depths of time, soft and low, like a lullaby from the heart of the world itself. Beneath mountains, in silent rock, their stories remain. And as you drift into dreams, remember, time never truly ends. It only changes its shape. The sound fades and what remains is only peace. The peace of knowing that you are part of it all, that everything that ever was still breathes quietly within you. The night holds you gently, the earth turns beneath you, and the echoes in stone hum you softly to sleep.